Welcome back to episode 63 of On the Wild. I'm your host, Riley Keenan. With me, as always, Anuj Bhaskar. The NBA playoffs are underway, and they have not gone according to plan. What are your thoughts so far?
Yeah, according to our picks last week, they're not looking good.
No.
I mean, Phoenix, Devin Booker is out. I guess we'll just go through each series. We could start with that one.
Yeah.
It's 1-1 right now. Devin Booker is out 2 to 3 weeks with a grade 1 hamstring strain, which isn't good because hamstring, they don't just go away. You need a lot of time to, like soft tissue injuries, those don't just go away in a couple of weeks. They linger. So I think they can get past New Orleans. I don't think maybe it'll go longer than it should have been if Booker was there. But I think like the next round of that, they have assuming Dallas wins, we'll get to that. But I don't know if they can beat Dallas with Luka Doncic without Devin Booker. I give them a good chance, but without Devin Booker, I don't think that they're going to win the title. I mean, I said it last week. The only team that I think can stop the Suns is the Suns, and that's what's happened so far.
Yeah.
With Devin Booker's injury. And we saw that last year with Chris Paul. I think Devin Booker had an injury last year too. I think it was a hamstring as well. So yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, like you said, like the hamstring hurts, especially with the way he plays and how he creates separation and his hit and turnaround jumpers. I mean, first of all, that him props in the baby, that was pretty sick. Yeah, but
that was awesome.
I mean, this kind of goes to show how valuable Booker is to his team. Obviously, it's one game without him, and he played most of the game. But I mean, without Paul, they were still able to win as much as they did with him. And now without Booker, we're going to really see how good this team can be. And I think Chris Paul has to be even more of a leader than he already is. But it's going to be tough because the way Ingram has shown that he can be real baller, and McCollum's always been able to be a more than solid closer in a game. So it will be interesting. But yeah, like you said, like the Suns are going to get in their own way. Guys like Jay Crowder and Cam Johnson, they have to hit shots late in games. Mikal Bridges has to be that defensive player of the year candidate he was all season to really close out games for these guys. I think it's going to be really tough. I think they still squeak it out. I think not even squeak it out. I think without Booker, I think they can win it in 6. I think the Pels will take one at home, but I think when it comes down to it, the Suns can still close it out.
Yeah, they have great role players. I think you insert Cam Johnson into the starting lineup. You have a lineup of Chris Paul, Mikal Bridges, Crowder, Cam Johnson, and DeAndre Ayton. I think that's good enough to beat the Pelicans. Chris Paul needs to. I mean, it all falls on his shoulders to get people open. And as a scorer, I think DeAndre Ayton has to take a step up as well. So, like you said, I think they pull it out. But long term, without Booker, they're not going anywhere. I don't think.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then we move on to the 2-7 series between the Grizzlies and the Timberwolves. This one, it kind of went how we expected, but at the same time, not at all. We knew it was going to be a competitive series. We knew it was going to go down to the wire, but it's kind of been like a 2016 finals where it's just a blowout every game in a way. I mean, let's talk about their last game, game 3. I mean, the coaching, first of all, horrendous. You're on a 21-0 run against with the Grizzlies, and you don't call a single timeout. I mean, you have to adjust. You got to call at least 2 even in that point. And then for Towns to not score after making the comments and showing the presence he had, that's kind of embarrassing. But I do like the heart of the Grizzlies. I like I listened to the interview afterwards, and Ja was calling his whole team dogs, and he said they were getting on him because the way he was playing lazy. He had fouls early. He wasn't playing as aggressive. So it's nice to see that they all got each other's backs, and they seem like a well-oiled unit. So I really like the Grizzlies in the series. I still think they take it, but the Timberwolves have shown me that they can be a really great team, and they're going to be a perennial force. But coaching and guys stepping up needs to happen for them.
It should be 2-1 Timberwolves. They blew 2 25-point leads yesterday. I don't even know how that's possible. But, yeah, Cat needs to step up. I think he only had, 7 points last night.
Yeah, he 5 rebounds too.
Yeah, it happens to him. He just, takes himself out of games.
Yeah.
If he was consistent, he could be up there with Embiid, Jokic, AD when he's healthy. He can be that guy. It's just that he takes himself out of games. I think that's a problem with AD as well, but that's a topic for another day. But yeah, Cat needs to step up. Anthony Edwards had a great game 1 when they beat him in Memphis. Ever since then, he's been pretty quiet. So I think the 3 stars, Cat, and D'Lo need to step up. But credit to Memphis as well. Ja didn't start the game well, got better as the game went on. But Brandon Clark Desmond Bain, the role players from Memphis have really stepped up this series, especially in the last 2 games.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think Memphis takes it. I think I said 5 last week. Maybe it goes 6, maybe even 7 with the way the Timberwolves have looked. But I think Memphis still takes it.
Yeah, I agree. I think I said 6. I'd probably stick with that. But moving on, Warriors Nuggets, the 3-6. This did not go well. I mean, listen, I think we may have said 7 or 6 each.
I said 7.
I think looking back on it, I don't know why I even thought that, because you just look at this Nuggets team and there's just not a lot of help there. Their second best scorer is the worst of the second best scorers in the entire league in points per game. I mean, Barton had a good game 1 and Gordon had some big shots in game 3, but they don't have anybody else that can close a game for them besides Jokic. And I see a lot of people, putting it on Jokic right now, and to an extent, I agree. You gotta be able to win at least one in this series, especially if you're going to be a back-to-back MVP. But at the same time, comparing his situation to Embiid, I think just simply isn't fair. Guys, and Embiid hasn't even been the best player in the series at points in time. Like Maxey was the best player clearly in game 1. Obviously, he had a big shot in game 3, but we'll get to that. But listen, he had 37 and 18 last night, and he made some massive plays. He did have 2 tough turnovers late in the game, but it's hard to pin it on him when this Warriors team, I mean, listen, you got an all-star in Andrew Wiggins. You got 2 Hall of Famers in Klay Thompson and Draymond Green. Jordan Poole is now the 3rd splash brother. He's been incredible. And you got Stephen Curry coming off the bench. So, there's not much you can do if you're, the Nuggets right now. I think you can't really put too much onus on Jokic or the team as a whole. The Warriors are firing, and right now they look like the best team in the West to me.
Yeah, I agree. I think Jokic at times has looked kind of disengaged. And I don't really blame him. Like, he doesn't have any help. Yeah. So it's hard to really get into it when you know that nobody on your team can hold a candle to anybody else on Golden State. I think Draymond's done a really good job defending him, being physical with him. That's kind of the blueprint on how you stop Jokic. But yeah, Golden State is going to win this in 4. I think they close out in game 4. I think it's a sweep. Yeah. They look like the best team with Devin Booker out. I would say they're the odds-on favorite at this point to make it out the West.
Absolutely.
Like you said, Jordan Poole has gone crazy this series. I don't know. Are they going to keep Steph on the bench? I don't think so. I think next series you switch it up.
Absolutely. I think in this series, obviously, you got to keep it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Come next series, I think it's tough because obviously you want them to start. But at the same time, with guys coming out, the starters usually come out 7 or 8 minutes into the game. Obviously, you have different rotations. I like the idea of Curry, coming into that second unit and just lighting it up because, obviously he's still got a lot of intensity and speed and acceleration, but the intensity that Poole brings as a starter, makes guys get tired early and forces them to be aggressive and they take fouls so that they play less aggressive once Curry comes into the game. But at the same time, Curry's one of the best players of all time. He's a great shooter of all time. Why would you not want him in your starting lineup? So I think come next round, you got to start him. But right now, I think the situation is perfect.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And then we got the Mavericks and Jazz. And this one was the only one that's gone according to plan, I feel like. I said that Dallas would split it at home without Luka, and they haven't had Luka in game 3 as well. And Jalen Brunson has been the man to show up. We all thought it was going to be Dinwiddie. We knew Brunson was going to be a fully capable player, but to put up 41 in game 2 was incredible. I love the opportunity he gets. I remember when he played in college at Villanova, he was a baller. He was the leader of that team, and he was forcing it or he wasn't forcing it to the basket. He was taking it to the basket, and we're seeing the same thing from him now. I love to see it, and the Jazz just look shattered. It looks like there's so little chemistry. There's a lot of plays where, there was one where Conley takes a step back, creates a lot of separation, has a wide open 3, and instead he kind of throws up a shot pass to Gobert, and Gobert's looking at the rim, not even knowing it's coming. And then there's a little, back and forth between them. Like the communication isn't there, the chemistry isn't there. I think the Mavericks could, maybe take it in 5, but I think 6 games is where it'll go.
Yeah, I think the Jazz are done. They're going to lose this series and they're going to blow it up. I think Gobert is on a different team next year. Now, I think there's a high possibility that Donovan Mitchell requests a trade.
Yeah.
It happens every summer. There's always one star that wants out, and he makes the most sense to be that guy. Mm-hmm. The Donovan Mitchell to the New York Knicks thing has been going on for, I swear, 2 years now. So, I think they blow it up. I think Quinn Snyder's out. Yeah, I picked the Jazz in 7 because I said because Luka was going to miss what we thought game 1s and game 1 and 2. He ended up missing game 3 as well. I thought the Jazz would squeak it out in 7, but I think this is over in 5 or 6 games, and Dallas moves on.
Do you think it is more of the, obviously it kind of goes hand in hand, but do you think it is more of the insurgence of the Dallas players or more of just the Jazz falling apart in this series?
It's a combination of both.
Yeah.
I think the Jazz have peaked with their current roster, much like what we said when CJ McCollum got traded. I think we talked about it, and we talked about Portland peaking. I think the Jazz are in the same spot.
Yeah.
Like they're not going to go anywhere with their current roster, so they may as well, restart.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of talk. I think we talked about this too, about a Gobert trade to Toronto. I don't know how I feel about that now. The way they kind of have their roster filled. I think it would be a nice piece to grab, but I think there's other teams that could really use it. I think like a team like Dallas, like if he goes right to Dallas, that'd be almost like a perfect move to have that interior force for them. And then I think I truly believe Gobert can be, a 20, 22 point per game guy if he's getting the touches. I mean, he was 4 for 4 heading into that third quarter. They're just not giving him chances to shoot. I mean, he's wide open a lot of the time, and he overmatches his matchups. So, he needs some more opportunity.
Yeah, he needs to go to a place where he has a facilitator that can make him better. So I think, Dallas is perfect because he has Luka, and he's going to make him better. So, yeah, that makes sense.
And then I guess we move on over to the East, where we have the Heat and the Hawks. And Jimmy Butler, man. I love to see it from him because he didn't have a down year in any sense of the word, but he hasn't had as much buzz as he's had since, coming off the bubble. He was one of the guys that people were saying, is he a top 5 player in the league? Is he top 10? He proved, last night that he's still an absolute animal out there. But, the Hawks just don't seem to have it. Trae Young has not, brought it just yet. I think they can maybe get the gentleman's sweep, but it's going to be tough for them. The Heat look like one of the, obviously they're the number 1 seed in the East, but they look like the team now that maybe could come out of the East.
Yeah, I picked them to come out of the East. And with Middleton's injury, I think that makes it a little better. But with the way Boston's looking against Brooklyn, and with Robert Williams coming back, they'll be a real player with their defense. But like you said, Jimmy Butler is insane. He went for 45 in game 2. I think they sweep the Hawks. Actually, no. The Hawks have been the best team at home since I think January 6th or something like that. So I think they'll get 1 at home. And then I think Miami closes it out in 5. Yeah. The Hawks are really missing Clint Capella.
Oh, yeah.
Him getting injured has kind of messed everything up. I think if he was there, he'd be a little bit more competitive. The Heat are being really physical with Trae Young. He had 10 turnovers last game. Like he's obviously frustrated, and credit to Miami. I think Miami is much. I compared Miami to Phoenix a lot in the way like they're built. I think they're a perfectly built modern basketball team.
Yeah,
and they have a great coach. Spoelstra, I think, is a top 3 or 5 coach in the NBA. So my pick is looking good. My Eastern Conference pick is looking good, but we'll see what happens. I like the Heat.
Yeah, it's looking real nice. And then, as you said, we move on over to the Celtics Nets series, and this has not gone the way we anticipated. I think the one guy we have to look at is Kevin Durant. I mean, the one stat that rings clear to me is going over 10, down the stretch in that game, or I think it was in the second half. That, that can't happen. It's the first time in a while KD has looked rattled. I mean, in that Bucks series, there was a lot of times where it just looked like there's no way the Nets are going to come out of this with the way Harden was playing, with the way guys were going down. But he always seemed confident. And in that game, it just didn't look, or at least in game 2, it didn't look like he was not confident, but he wasn't, that man. And obviously, it's tough to bring that every night, but yeah, just the Celtics have just done such a good job defensively on them. And obviously they've been the best team or best defensive team in the second half of the year. And, they're really showing it now. I love the way Tatum and Brown are playing. And Marcus Smart, I'm so happy he got the defensive player of the year. I think he deserved it just because obviously there hasn't been a guard in a while. And you kind of have to reward. Obviously, I think it was kind of like a team rewarding in a sense.
Only one guard has ever won it.
Gary Payton. So I think this was the right time to do it, especially with, we're getting MVPs at center again. So kind of to flip the script a little bit, it's pretty cool. But yeah, it's a tough spot for the Nets to be in. I think they're going to have to scratch and claw to get it to even a game 7. But the way it looks right now, I think the Celtics close it out in 6.
Yeah, I like 6 games. Maybe even 5, because I think they'll split in Brooklyn. And then game 5 will be competitive. And who knows? I think Boston for sure wins this series. I don't see KD and Kyrie having 4 more amazing games. like Chuck was saying it on TNT, like going into the series, it was unsure because of how good the Boston defense is. Like for KD and Kyrie to have 4 amazing games and win, no, it's very difficult. And with only 5 games left, it's hard to see Brooklyn beating Boston 4 times with how good they're playing on defense, and how bad KD has been. I mean, he has to hold a lot of accountability for it because in both games he has not showed up. And a lot of it is the Boston defense, but he's had some really good looks, especially in game 2. He had some late in the game. He had some pretty good looks from 3 and from the mid range. So, and he just wasn't hitting them, which you come to expect because he's widely regarded as the best player in the world. I think it's Giannis, but KD needs to step up.
Yeah, and I think the Nets as a whole too, they're kind of playing the way the Celtics did in the early part of the season and just very selfish basketball. They're not always looking for that open look. It's almost like they're just like, oh, we're down, let's get KD the ball, let's shoot it. You got Seth Curry, that's a guy you have to utilize with his shot. And there's a lot of other pieces that are going to be open because there's so much focus on KD and Kyrie. They're the 2 of the most skilled players of all time, in the words of Tracy McGrady. You have to get everyone involved, and that's how they're going to be successful because that's the way the Celtics have been successful. It's not one guy anymore. It's not Tatum taking over the game or Brown taking over the game. It's let's get the ball to the open man and let's make the right shot.
Yeah, and also the Nets just don't have an offense.
Yeah,
they don't have a system. So yeah. I think it's a high possibility that Steve Nash gets fired.
I agree. As much as I love him as a coach, he just has not been able to make the adjustments necessary to run an offense, and clearly their defense hasn't been that great all season. So it's gut check time for him, especially. But yeah, we'll move on to the 3-6 series. We had the Bucks and the Bulls. I believe I had the Bucks winning in 5. A lot of people thought it was going to be a sweep. I honestly did too, because of the way initially, just because of the way the Bulls play against the better teams over 500 in the league. But I mean, they brought it in game 2, but losing Middleton just hurts so much for the Bucks because he is their closer. As much as Giannis is an absolute beast, in the end of games, Middleton has been their guy. And without him, Drew Holiday is going to have to step up big time. It's going to be really tough for them. But I still think the Bucks take it because, look at the way Giannis was playing at the end of that game. He was looking super aggressive. He had a couple offensive foul calls that were bad on his part, taking it a little too hard into the paint. But just the way he brings that intensity, and when they were down, it looked like, okay, the Bulls are going to take this easily. They were never out of that game, not at any point, because he just always clawed back for them. And I still think he is the best defensive player in basketball. But yeah, the Bulls are going to make it tough, especially, they have so many guys that can just take it into their own hands. I think we didn't see a lot from LaVine in that game. Obviously DeRozan puts up 41, so they're focused on him, but LaVine could put that up the very next night. He's a great closer as well. So it's going to be a really tough one.
Yeah, I think it's a toss-up now. With the way the Bulls looked in game 2, they look confident. They got one in Milwaukee, so they split. So now going to Chicago, I think it could go 7. I really do.
Yeah.
Especially with how DeRozan played with Giannis as his primary defender last game. I think he was 9 for 10 or 10 for 11. So he's not afraid of the challenge. He played really bad in game 1, responded in game 2. So we'll see what happens going forward. But I think it's a toss-up now.
Yeah,
without Middleton.
I kind of look at Giannis right now the way I thought of in last year's series against the Nets, where he wasn't, it was PJ Tucker that was on KD. He wasn't taking that responsibility. I think Giannis has been guarding Patrick Williams for the most part, or marking him when he's on the floor, but he needs to take some more responsibility. He needs to, he's a good perimeter defender. He's a more than capable perimeter defender. And he's so versatile and so quick that he can, get back into the paint quickly. I think he needs to get up on DeRozan or LaVine at some points in the game because Vucevic has not been getting the looks that we usually see from him, and that they're gonna try to create separation and shot create at the end of the day. So Giannis has to take some responsibility there because Drew Holiday can't carry all the load.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, I think this could very well go 7, especially with the way the Bulls are bringing that intensity. And I love watching their bench is probably the most fun one I like to watch because Tristan Thompson, man, he just seems so happy to be there. He's not even really playing, and he's with these guys and he love it. I love to see the camaraderie within the team, but I'm excited to see how this series goes down. I think this is the one that'll be the most exciting because it seems like it truly is competitive, especially with Middleton out now.
Yeah.
But then we move on over to the one we thought was going to be an absolute stalemate. But I mean, it's a 3-0 series lead for the Sixers against the Raptors. Obviously, Scotty went down in game one, but we're not going to make excuses here. Philly's been playing great. Maxey was tremendous in game one. Tobias Harris had a great game one as well. I don't even think, Harden and Embiid weren't the two best, weren't even the one or two best players on the floor in that game. It's been those two guys. But I mean, games 2 and 3. I mean, you saw, first of all, the second half for Embiid was incredible. But at the same time, it's true. You got to hit at least one of those free throws. And in that last play, what is it, 0.9 seconds on the clock to take that shot? It was wide open, and he's taking a fadeaway three. You got to give credit where credit's due. That was an unbelievable shot. And he tried it earlier in the game to win. In the fourth quarter, he hits it in overtime. You can't let him do that. You can't have Fred be the guy on him there. Achua's got to step up. But at the same time, you can't put a loss on one guy. Philly has brought it, and they have proved that they can be a true contender this year. It seems like, Harden hasn't necessarily been the guy which really annoyed me is obviously, Harden and Embiid have always been able to get foul calls and get to the line, but it seems like Harden's just forcing it. Obviously in Philly, they're going to get the calls. Like realistically, they're going to get the calls. Just look at the free throws between the two teams. The Raptors are aggressive, but they're not going to get the calls. When we come back to Toronto, look at how many charging calls and offensive fouls that they had and that they weren't getting called, when they were shooting. So Harden needs to be more aggressive. He needs to, it's been weird. He hasn't been, taking the shots when he's open, but he'll take the step back 40-footer, which is weird to me. I think he needs to just settle sometimes, or sorry, not settle, but just take the smart shot. But Embiid's been great in this series.
Yeah, Harden's been kind of timid. It's been kind of weird, but I think Embiid played really well in games 2 and 3. And you see the role players stepping up, and that's a really promising sign for Philadelphia, because in the past, Embiid would play well. Ben Simmons didn't play well, but the role players never really stepped up for them. They're doing it now, with Maxey and Tobias Harris. I think this goes 5. I think Philadelphia closes out in 5. I think Toronto wins one in game 4. And I don't know. There was a little bit of a complaint on Twitter about Doc Rivers being on Nick Nurse's side for the timeout. They're not going to call that. If Nick Nurse did that, they wouldn't have called it. Like, when you're that close of a game, calls like that just don't happen. Like, you don't bring a game down to that, even though it is a rule.
I agree. The only thing that really frustrated me is in the fourth quarter when Embiid took that shot and Fred got the rebound, Nick Nurse is screaming for a timeout and he doesn't get it because he's following the rules and staying in the box. And then overtime comes and Doc Rivers does what Nick Nurse won't. I absolutely agree. You don't want a game to come down to that because of a call that never gets called, because it doesn't usually happen. But at the same time, it's in the rule books. Like, it sucks that it came down to that. But, listen, he hits a big shot. You can't let him take that shot at the end of the day. I'm not going to complain. That's not, if they lose this series, I'm not going to say, oh, they should have called Doc Rivers. I probably would have done the same thing if I was him. You're in Toronto. It's loud. People are going crazy and the refs can't hear you want to get a timeout. And it was the right move on his part. Can't really blame them for not calling it, but it's tough. I mean, if I'm Nick Nurse, I'm running on the court every single time I want a timeout now, and they better not call it.
Yeah.
But it is good. Yeah. And credit to OG Anunoby. He's always been my guy, and he has proved that he could be that X factor for the Raptors. Fred needs to step up. The shots late in the game from 3 were killing me. Siakam was struggling a bit, but he was still making the necessary plays. And Gary is finally showing that, he's back and he's making good plays. But I think they can win 1. I think they'll win game 4. But yeah, I think Philly in 5.
But with all that being said, we're doing a mock draft today. But before we get to that, Deebo Samuel has kind of taken over all the headlines with his trade request from the San Francisco 49ers. He doesn't want to play running back and wide receiver. He wants to be a more traditional wide receiver, which he had 1,400 yards receiving last year. So he's more than capable of being a top receiver. But me personally, I think him being that hybrid makes him, a top 5 weapon in the NFL.
Yeah.
Maybe even the best, the way he was playing in the playoffs. But looking at teams that may be interested in him, a report just came out from ESPN that the Jets, the Lions, and the Packers have all shown interest. I don't know. What do you think? Who do you think should try and get Deebo Samuel if he were to get traded?
Yeah, initially when that report came out, it was kind of baffling because we had heard little rumors about it, but I think right now, I think Belichick's got to jump on him. If I'm him, you got to get someone for Mac Jones to throw to. But I think the biggest team, and where if I'm Deebo, this is where I want to go. Packers. I think being Aaron Rodgers' number one guy is never something you don't want to be, especially with the way Devontae Adams was there when Jordy Nelson was there and Greg Jennings. I think it's the perfect spot for him, especially with some of the additions they've got. They got a couple security blankets now with I can't remember who they just signed, but
Sammy Watkins.
Sammy Watkins, yeah. Which I like him as the number 3 guy, I would imagine, in that receiving core. But yeah, if he doesn't want to be a dual threat, that's fine. I think at sometimes in the game you got to be able to, which I think can come to their advantage. If he doesn't want to be that dual threat, teams aren't going to expect it as much, so they're not going to be playing against it. So that when they do it, it's going to be incredibly dangerous.
I don't think he just doesn't want to, take handoffs anymore. I think it's just the volume of how many he got. Yeah. I think he got like 60-something carries, and it was all in the second half of the season.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to be lined up in the backfield half the game. I think that's what it is. I think he's still open to being, taking the end arounds and all that, but I think he wants to be more of a traditional receiver.
Yeah, and that's very fair. But yeah,
he wants to extend his career. If he keeps taking those hits, his career is not going to last as long. But for me, I think teams who want Deebo Samuel need to be prepared to pay him. Obviously, he wants $25 million at least. With how receiver contracts are going, I think he would want more than that, to be honest. So I look at the Jets, the Lions, the Eagles, and the Texans, because they all have capital. They all have 2 first-round picks, so they can trade one of those. They're able to pay him the money that he wants, and they're not, they don't have anybody to pay in the near future.
Yeah.
So I think those are the best spots for him. If I were to pick one, I think the Jets are the most likely, because Robert Saleh was in San Francisco. Matt LaFleur's brother, the Green Bay head coach, he's the offensive coordinator in New York. So he has that familiarity. They can pay him. And the GM has already come out and said, if the opportunity comes, they're going to be aggressive. So they want him. I think it'd be a good fit for him. But if I got to choose where he went, Baltimore, I think that's the perfect spot for him.
Yeah, that is true.
It just feels like a Raven.
If we're talking about the perfect situation, I think Baltimore and Packers are definitely it. But in terms of where I think he'll go, I think it's the Jets. I agree with you there, just because they have so much to offer, and they lost a plethora of receivers.
And I see no scenario where he goes to Green Bay. They're not trading him to Green Bay because they're not trading him to a rival in the NFC.
That's true.
Because they're all going to offer similar trade packages. So they're just going to send him to where they don't have to see him. So I think the AFC is the most likely, and they're not going to trade him to.
Yeah.
If they were to trade him to the NFC, I see a team like the Lions, somebody who isn't going to immediately threaten the 49ers next year or whatever. Yeah. So.
And it's tough because obviously you don't see this much in football, getting future picks. But I think, I agree. You made a really good point about not wanting to trade it within your division, especially a team that's going to be a threat to you. But, if you can maybe get a first-round pick for 3 years from now, which obviously we don't see in the NFL, that would be pretty great because, by the time Aaron Rodgers is out of the league, the Packers are going to be a struggling team. It could be a very high pick. But at the same time, that's asking for a lot.
Well, you can't trade like the NBA where you could trade 20, 30 first-round picks. It's only in the next 3 years.
Yeah, right.
And Deebo Samuel isn't worth all that. I think it'll be a first and maybe a second. What the Raiders traded for Devontae Adams, a first and a second. I don't think they'll get as much as the Chiefs got for Tyreek Hill. Mm-hmm. So I think a first and a second is fair. So that's why I'm saying teams with 2 first-round picks. If it was the Lions, they have the 32nd pick, so maybe 32 and their second-round pick. Or the Jets have the 10th pick. I think if you do that and a third, something like that, I think that's what he'll go for. But we'll see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Great player, but
yeah.
Let's get into our mock draft. We're following the same formula as last year. We're gonna alternate. Last year went terrible. We got the first 3 picks. We got Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson were locked. That was known a month before the draft. 3rd pick was Mac Jones or Trey Lance. So you nailed that. You got Trey Lance. And then I started picking with my heart over my head, and I picked Justin Fields to go to the Falcons, even though I knew Kyle Pitts was going to go.
I think we also had Penne going to the Bengals too, which just made sense at the time. No one was anticipating this season from Jamar, which is tough. But yeah, well, hopefully we can redeem ourselves here. To be honest, I don't know if I will. This last year's draft class was a lot. It seemed like there was a lot more clear-cut guys. This one, obviously, in terms of quarterbacks, so. But we'll start this draft off. Obviously, Jacksonville's drafting first, and as enticing as it is to grab like an elite offensive lineman or an offensive tackle to further, protect Trevor Lawrence, I think the Jaguars have already invested so much in their offensive line. I think Aiden Hutchinson is the right pick here. I think he's the best edge rusher in the draft, and I think he'll accompany Josh Allen really well. To me, not much there for me to really explain. I think he's just a good fit for them. He's a Michigan boy, so I love that as well. But yeah, I think Aiden Hutchinson to the Jaguars is the right pick.
Yeah, I think he's the safest pick. I think somebody like Trayvon Walker has a higher ceiling, but I think Aiden Hutchinson has a higher floor than Walker or Thibodeau or anybody like that. So I think that's the right pick for them. But the second overall pick, you have Detroit. If you asked me a month ago, I would have said Thibodeau, like without question. But then a report came out that Dan Campbell didn't like Thibodeau and he didn't think that he would fit within their culture. So for that reason, I'm going to take Trayvon Walker at second overall. I think he has flown up draft boards. He's kind of like Zach Wilson last year. Beginning of the process, he was, projected to be a second round pick. I was seeing a lot of mock drafts that had him going in the second round to the Falcons. And now he's, there's even talks of him being the first overall pick in the draft. So I think with the way that Georgia used him, they used him off the edge, they used him inside, they even dropped him into coverage. So I think a lot of scouts, like I'm not a scout obviously, but I think a lot of people see like that Micah Parsons like versatility in him, which makes him very attractive, and he's very athletic. His combine numbers are, off the charts, and I think he's like 6'3" or 6'4", 270 or something like that. So he's a freak athlete, and you can use him in so many different ways. So I think he'll fit in with the culture that Detroit's trying to build with Dan Campbell. So Trayvon Walker at 2.
Yeah. I initially thought you were going to take Thibodeau there, so I thought Walker was going to fall to 3 to Houston. I think he would have fit perfectly in that system. But at 3, I got to go with Kayvon Thibodeau here. I mean, the guy's incredibly explosive. His quick first step is insane. But his athleticism is incredible. His hips, his firing ability to draw back into coverage, I think is really impressive. And I think if he falls, he has the potential to fall in this draft, but I think he can be a true superstar in this league. So I think he goes 3rd to Houston.
A lot of people say he's not as passionate as others. I think he's the most talented pass rusher in this draft.
Yeah.
Like if like going into the college football season last year, he was penciled in as the number 1 pick. So he has that kind of talent. And going to Houston, I mean, they're the kings at drafting defensive ends. So they had Clowney, J.J. Watt, Mario Williams back in the day. It seems like every couple of years they're drafting one. So they've all kind of panned out. So it should be good. I love Thibodeau. I think he's going to be one of those like 12 to 15 sack guys. I have high hopes for him. But looking at 4 overall, we got the New York Jets. I think they go defense, sticking with the theme. I think they go Ahmed Sauce Gardner at corner. They have 2 picks. They have the 10th pick as well. And I don't think that's he would last that long. I think somebody would even trade up to get him, somebody like Minnesota or Baltimore or something like that. So I think they take Gardner here. Didn't allow a touchdown in college.
Yeah.
He has a lot of confidence. He's said on multiple occasions that he's the best player in the draft. So he's coming in confident into New York. I think it's a great fit. Robert Saleh is great with corners. So we saw what he did with Richard Sherman, kind of resurrecting him in 2019. So different type of corner. Sauce Gardner is more of a man-to-man coverage type of guy. I personally prefer Stingley, but again, this isn't what we would do. This is what we think is going to happen. So I think the Jets go with Sauce.
Yeah, I was coming in here. I was going to say the same thing. If you didn't take him, I was thinking Gardner would go above Stingley. But at the same time, when I'm looking at the reports, I like Stingley a little bit more. But I think, like you said, I think obviously the Vikings are going to be looking at a cornerback too. I think they could potentially get him at 12 if they don't trade up.
Stingley, if you base his tape off of his freshman year, you could make an argument that he's the best player in the draft.
Absolutely.
Like a legit argument. So
yeah,
he's just kind of been injured, and I don't think he was necessarily motivated the last 2 years because he knows how good he is.
Exactly.
Which is kind of a red flag, but
Yeah, it is to an extent. I think, you look at the most recent person who was, unmotivated was the kind of like an Anthony Edwards kind of guy. It seemed like he wasn't that pumped on basketball, but we've seen how that's turned out. So if it's anything like that, I think he's going to be a great player in the league. But obviously we move on to the Giants at 5. I think they got to go offensive line here, especially if they're going to be keeping Saquon. I don't know. I think they could potentially trade him at the end of the year, depending on how
his contract's out.
Or there you go. But yeah, I think they got to get more protection in there. I think obviously it looks like Tyrod Taylor's going to be their quarterback. I think.
Well, him and Daniel Jones. I think Daniel Jones is still going to be the starter, but
yeah, that should be interesting. But
they're going to be in the CJ Stroud, Bryce Young sweepstakes next year for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, with offensive line, I think I'm going to lean Evan Neal. I think he's got effortless power, and he creates massive lanes for rushers. He's great run blocking, so I think that fits perfectly with the Giants. Yeah, there's not much to say. I think Evan Neal, he's a guy that could, potentially be up there even higher. But yeah, I think he fits perfectly with the Giants.
Yeah, I like that pick. I think him and Andrew Thomas being their 2 tackles, I like that a lot. So 2 SEC guys, you never go wrong with that.
Yeah.
But going to 6th overall, we have the Carolina Panthers. There's a lot of different things that they could do here. They could go offensive line with Charlie Cross or Ikem. I'm not even gonna try to say his last name.
I think.
Yeah, I don't know. But I think they go quarterback here. I think they go Kenny Pickett. I would pick Malik Willis, but Kenny Pickett has a lot of ties to Carolina. Matt Rule tried to recruit him to Temple when he was at Temple. I think he may have even committed to Temple, and then he went to Pitt to stay home. And then their owner, David Tepper, I think that's his name. He's a Pitt alum, so he has a lot of links to Carolina. Kenny Pickett does, and I mean, people are saying he's the most pro-ready. I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that.
Yeah.
But I think he has a very, very, very low ceiling. I think he's Alex Smith to me.
Yeah.
Which is cool. You'll win regular season games maybe depending on the roster around him, but you're not going to win playoff games, especially with how good quarterbacks are now.
Yeah.
But I think they go Kenny Pickett. Safe pick.
Yeah, fair move. Then we're back to the Giants once again at number 7. This one's tough because obviously they're not going to go with offensive line again, but I don't think they're in the market for a quarterback just yet. I'm going to go with Jermaine Johnson on the edge. He uses his length to his advantage a lot. I think he needs to develop that handwork a little bit. We've seen flashes of it in the past that he's capable of doing so, but overall he's great against the run. And the guy's just an absolute beast on the edge. And I think I like him on the Giants as well. He kind of just seems like he fits well within their system. And yeah, it never hurts to get an edge rusher. I think he's a guy that he could potentially be better than Hutchinson and Thibodeau. I think the 3 of them are going to be in a serious battle for edge rusher, but yeah, I like this pick.
Yeah, I like Johnson a lot. And you look at whenever the Giants are good, their 3 Super Bowl runs, or do they have 4? I don't know. But whenever they won a Super Bowl, what was the strength of their team? It was the pass rush. You look at the 2011 team, you had O.C. Minura, Justin Tuck. Same thing with the 2017 Strahan. So they always have great pass rushers when they're good. So I like that pick a lot. I like Johnson a lot. So moving on to 8, we have the Falcons, my favorite team. There's a lot of different things that they could do here, much like Carolina. Do they go quarterback? I'm getting a sense that they're going to go quarterback just because, like, Arthur Smith did a podcast, the Rich Eisen show a couple of days ago, and he was talking about like the quarterback room. And he's like, well, we'll see what happens next week. Like, he's kind of hinting at it. And I think with how much they liked Trey Lance last year, like they love Trey Lance. If he was there at 4, they were going to take him. Malik Willis is very comparable to him. Small school, very raw. He's going to have to sit. And the trainer that he's working with is the same trainer that worked with Trey Lance last year.
Yeah.
He's from Atlanta. He's a fan of all Georgia sports teams. I think they may go Garrett Wilson here. I think it's Garrett Wilson or Malik Willis. I'm going to go Malik Willis. I think that's going to be the shocker of the top 10. 21 years after they picked Michael Vick, they got their new Michael Vick, or at least hopefully. So, yeah, I think Malik Willis to Atlanta. Because also they have their bridge quarterback. I think Marcus Mariota is the perfect bridge quarterback. He even said that if they were to draft a quarterback, he would do everything in his power to help him.
Yeah.
And he's experienced a lot of things. He's been the second overall pick in the draft with high expectations. He's been a starter in the league. He's won a playoff game, but he's also been benched and he's been a backup quarterback. So he has a lot of experience in his 6 years in the league so far. So I think he's the perfect bridge to learn under. And I trust Arthur Smith to develop Malik Willis. We saw what he did with Tannehill, kind of resurrecting his career. So maybe talking myself into it, but I think Malik Willis at 8.
Yeah, I think after missing out on Justin last year, it seems like why not? Why pass up this opportunity to get a guy that's got an absolute cannon? I will say that pick hurt me. Sorry, go ahead.
Because looking at like the future, you could say, oh well, you can get C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young next year. Well, I think there's like 10 or 12 teams that are thinking the exact same thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
So get your quarterback now. You have over $100 million in cap space next year. Groom him for a year. Load up. And you surround him with talent. I think that's the best way to go. Because even if you take Garrett Wilson, that's a great pick. I think that's a great compliment to Kyle Pitts. But this draft has so many great receivers. It's so deep that I don't think that taking a receiver at 8 is necessarily the right move. So I think taking your quarterback here, grooming him for a year is the move.
Yeah, I coming into this, I thought Garrett Wilson was going to be taken at 8, with his speed and acceleration. He's a great route runner. But yeah, that hurts me because obviously Seattle's picking 9 here, and that's what I'm doing. I was leaning Malik Willis. I thought he was going to fall to 9. I thought he would fit perfectly with, just throwing absolute bombs to Metcalf and Lockett downfield. But without him there, it's a lot tougher. So I guess I'm leaning offensive line once again for the Seahawks now. And it's tough because I'm kind of looking between Ekwonu and Cross. I'm going to go with Charles Cross here at 9. I think he's got great speed mixed with, he's got a lot of length, and he's got a strong core, which we don't see that often in offensive linemen. And he forces rushers outside. He's opening the inside lane. And if, Carson's the running back this year,
Chris Carson.
Yeah. If he's the running back this year, then I think, that inside lane being open is going to be great for him because he's more of a power back rather than, an agility kind of guy. So I think to be able to open those lanes with ease is going to be massive for them. So I'll go with Charles Cross at 9.
Cool. And the Jets at number 10.
Yeah.
I think they go receiver here. And who knows, maybe this is the 49ers picking. Maybe they trade this pick for Deebo Samuel.
Yeah.
But I think they definitely go receiver here. There's a bunch of good receivers on the board. You have Garrett Wilson, Jameson Williams. I did see a report that they love Jameson Williams, so I'm gonna say Jameson Williams at 10 overall. I would pick Garrett Wilson, but I think Garrett Wilson is the safer pick just because of Jameson Williams' injury. But the upside, I think Jameson Williams, if he didn't get injured, he would be by far the best receiver in the draft. So I'm gonna go Jameson Williams at 10 to the Jets. Pair him up with Elijah Moore and get Zach Wilson some weapons. I think that's the move.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot too. And obviously that wraps up our top 10. But is there one guy? Obviously, if you may have had a couple different picks than I would have. I may have had different picks than you would have. Is there a guy that you think could go top 10 or that should go top 10 that we didn't have in ours?
Kyle Hamilton. Kyle Hamilton's the best player in the draft.
I absolutely agree with that. I wanted to take him at so many points, but the team didn't need him necessarily. But I mean, to be able to run a 4.5 and a 4.7 respectively, he's really good downhill, and his wrap up tackling ability is great. As a fan, I would love Atlanta to take him. Yeah,
he's so versatile. He can do so many different things.
Mm-hmm.
And people talk about his speed. He ran a 4.6, but Ed Reed ran a 4.5
combine and then a 4.7 at the pro day.
So let's just even it out. 4.6. Ed Reed ran a 4.57. So it's not like, and it's straight line speed. How many times are you really going to run in a straight line as a safety?
Yeah, exactly.
You're constantly cutting. You're changing direction. That's more important than how fast you are in a straight line. So I think Kyle Hamilton's the best player in the draft. But I think he's gonna be one of those guys that drops, much like Derwin James did a few years back. He was one of the best players in the draft, and he dropped to I think 17 to the Chargers.
Yeah,
so I think it'll be the same sort of thing.
Yeah, I guess that closes out our mock draft.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we can at least get 50%. I'm hoping for 50.
Yeah.
That's
This
my.
draft is weird though. Like
It's tough.
so many different things can happen. I think there's going to be a trade. Like this is obviously without trades, but I don't know. This draft is really weird in the sense where like there's not a lot of star prospects. Like last year we had Lawrence, we had Pitts, Chase, Devontae Smith coming off his historic season, winning the Heisman, Micah Parsons, Patrick Surtain. Like there were like superstar prospects, like Hall of Fame potential type of guys. And this year it's kind of like a bunch of good guys. Like this draft it's very deep. Like there's a lot of depth, but there's no like top guys. So.
Yeah. Last draft felt like for the most part, let's try to get the best guy available. This one is more so who's going to fit our scheme. And I think for the most part, that's what you got to lean towards. But as it gets later on, you got to try to just go with whoever's going to, be the best player.
Yeah. But with that, we're probably going to wrap up here. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for listening. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Comment down below what you thought of our mock draft and what you would change. And we will see you all next week. Take it easy.
Well.
Peace.